Ethan stepped off the shuttle, his boots clanging softly against the polished metal floor of the Interstellar University station. The bright lights reflected off the sleek walls, and holographic signs floated in mid-air, guiding him to his dorm. His heart raced, not from excitement alone, but from nerves. He had heard about the university's diversity, about students from hundreds of planets learning under one roof, but one rumor had kept him awake many nights. The story of Virelia's pairing season. Virelians were famous across the galaxy for their beauty, charm, and intense emotional connections during their mating period. And now, one of them would be his roommate. Ethan swallowed hard, wishing he could read minds. As he reached the dorm, a small door opened, revealing a room already filled with some basic furniture. 2 beds, a desk, and a window showing the stars beyond. He stepped in cautiously. "Hello," said a soft, melodic voice. Ethan turned. She was standing near the window, tall and elegant, with skin that shimmered faintly under the artificial light. Her hair was silver with streaks of violet, falling over her shoulders in waves. Her eyes glowed a soft green, and when they looked at him, he felt like she could see into his thoughts. I'm Ethan," he stammered. "I am Lyria," she replied with a small, polite smile. "I am your assigned roommate. It is a pleasure to meet you." Ethan nodded quickly. "Pleasure to meet you too." There was an awkward pause. Ethan fiddled with the strap of his backpack, unsure if he should sit, stand, or just vanish. Lyria tilted her head slightly, a gesture he noted but did not understand. She did not seem intimidating, only serene. "I understand pairing season has started," Ethan said nervously, blurting out more than he intended. Lyria's expression flickered. Surprise, maybe concern, but then she nodded slowly. "Yes, my species undergoes this once every cycle. It can affect behavior, but I will maintain control." Ethan swallowed. He tried to imagine how one person could control something so powerful and biological. "Oh, good, that's reassuring." The room suddenly shuddered. A low alarm sounded through the station, followed by flashing red lights. Ethan jumped. "What's happening?" he asked, his voice rising. "It appears to be a quarantine drill," Lyria said calmly. "All exits will remain locked for 24 cycles. We are temporarily trapped." Ethan froze. "Trapped? Here? With you?" "Yes," Lyria said, her tone neutral, yet there was no hint of malice. She looked almost amused. "We must make the best of this time." Ethan felt a flush of panic. He had been worried about pairing season, but now being locked in a small room with a beautiful Virelian for an entire day made his heart race. He wanted to say something clever or brave, but could only manage, "Right. Best of luck?" Lyria raised an eyebrow, which made him feel like a small child. "Luck is not necessary. Cooperation is preferable." He nodded quickly, sinking into one of the chairs near the desk. Lyria moved gracefully to the other side of the room, unpacking her belongings. Each movement seemed deliberate, calm, and mesmerizing. Ethan's gaze kept drifting to her, and he quickly looked away whenever he caught himself staring. "So, what's pairing season really like?" he asked cautiously, trying to sound casual. Lyria paused, glancing at him. "It is an intense time. Virelians experience stronger emotions, increased empathy, and a desire to form deep bonds. Some struggle to maintain composure. Others embrace it fully." Ethan's stomach nodded. "And you? Are you embracing it?" Lyria's green eyes met his. "I am aware of my instincts. I will not act impulsively. That is all you need to know." He exhaled slowly, relieved and nervous at the same time. It was clear she was in control, but the very idea that she had these instincts made him hyper-aware of every small gesture she made. Hours passed, and the two tried to settle into routines. Ethan unpacked his few belongings, while Lyria arranged her possessions neatly. Every now and then she glanced at him, her expression unreadable. Ethan could not tell if she was judging him, studying him, or simply observing. When it came time for meals, they ate together. Lyria's species consumed food differently, but she adapted easily to station rations. Ethan tried to start small. Talk. So, where are you from? He asked. I am from Veralia Prime, she said. A planet in the Andromeda sector. It is mostly oceans and floating cities. And you? Earth, Ethan said, smiling faintly. A lot of land, forests, oceans. Not much floating cities, though. Lyria tilted her head again. Interesting. You are very different from my people, yet not unpleasant. Ethan chuckled nervously. Thanks, I think. He realized that somehow, in the middle of panic about pairing season, he was actually enjoying the conversation. She was curious, intelligent, and surprisingly easy to talk to. Evening came. The artificial lights dimmed to simulate night, and Ethan prepared for bed. Lyria already seemed ready, sitting calmly on her bed, reading a small device. Are you comfortable sharing a room like this? Ethan asked, his voice quieter. Lyria looked up. I have shared rooms before. With careful boundaries, it is manageable. You must not worry too much. He nodded but could not shake his nervous energy. Pairing season was supposed to make Verelians irresistible and emotionally intense. And here he was, trapped in a room with one. As he lay down, he thought about the day. Despite the initial panic, he had not felt fear, only a strange mix of excitement and curiosity. Maybe Lyria was not dangerous after all. Maybe she could even become a friend. And yet, as he drifted towards sleep, Ethan could not ignore the faint shimmer in her eyes as she read. There was something about her, a quiet strength, a subtle allure, that made him wonder what the next day would bring. Outside, the station hummed quietly, the stars sparkling endlessly. Inside the dorm, two roommates, one human, one Verelian, faced the unknown together, bound by circumstance, curiosity, and the unspoken tension of a season that could change everything. The next morning, Ethan woke to the soft glow of the station's artificial sunlight. He rubbed his eyes and glanced at Lyria. She was already awake, sitting cross-legged on her bed, meditating. Her skin shimmered faintly in the light, and the calm aura around her made Ethan pause. He swallowed. Morning, he said softly, not wanting to disturb her. Lyria opened her green eyes and smiled slightly. Good morning, Ethan. Did you sleep? Well? Yeah, he replied. Better than I expected, I guess. She tilted her head, a thoughtful gesture that Ethan had begun to notice. It made him feel observed, yet not in a threatening way. That is good. Rest is important, especially during pairing season. Ethan nodded, suddenly very aware of the words. Pairing season. He could feel the weight of it pressing subtly in the quiet room. Breakfast in the dorm was awkward at first. Ethan tried to maintain normal conversation, asking about Lyria's home planet, her favorite foods, and her studies. She answered patiently, occasionally asking questions about Earth. What is Earth like? She asked, tilting her head. It's big. Mountains, oceans, forests. Lots of people. Mostly peaceful, he said. Sometimes chaotic. Lyria considered this. Interesting. We value harmony above all else. Chaos can be dangerous for some species. Ethan chuckled nervously. Yeah, I guess humans are a little messy sometimes. Despite the awkwardness, a small bond began forming. Sharing a meal, talking about their worlds, and observing each other's habits made Ethan feel a strange comfort. He realized that Lyria's presence was calming. Her beauty was undeniable, yes, but it was her calm, her control, her subtle attention that made him feel safe rather than overwhelmed. After breakfast, they tried to continue their studies. The station dorms had a small library section, and Lyria pulled out some Verelian texts. She tried to show Ethan a few concepts like their language symbols and a little about their culture. Ethan was fascinated. These symbols, they're beautiful, but I can't read them at all. Lyria laughed softly, a musical sound that made Ethan's chest tighten slightly. It takes practice, You are patient, yes? I'll try, he said. I really want to understand you, your world, your culture. Her eyes softened. That is rare. Many humans only notice our appearance. Ethan felt his cheeks warm. I notice you. Not just that, everything. Lyria said nothing, but there was a small flicker of approval in her gaze. Ethan realized that building trust was not just about avoiding the pairing instinct. It was about mutual respect and understanding. The hours passed, and the quarantine continued. They were forced to share everything: meals, studies, and even small chores like cleaning the room. Lyria's movements were precise, graceful, and surprisingly efficient. Ethan tried to match her, fumbling at first, but she guided him patiently. Here, she said once, placing his hands correctly while fixing a small shelf. Her fingers brushed his lightly. Ethan felt a spark of surprise and quickly pulled back, embarrassed. I'm sorry, he muttered. No apology is needed, Lyria said calmly. This is how we learn. Ethan nodded, though his heart raced. He realized the small touches, the proximity, and her natural aura were starting to affect him. He had to remind himself constantly she was a Varelian. It was pairing season and he had to be careful. By afternoon, they found themselves sitting side by side near the window. The stars outside sparkled like diamonds, and Ethan felt a strange serenity in the silence. You seem calm, he said. Even during pairing season. Lyria's eyes met his. Control comes from understanding oneself. I know. The dorm was quiet in the early hours of the morning, but Ethan could not sleep. The events of the past days, studying, learning, and navigating subtle gestures, kept running through his mind. Pairing season was intensifying, and he could feel it even in the small gestures Lyria made. Every glance, every brush of her hand sent a spark of tension through him. Lyria, however, seemed calm. She moved gracefully around the room, organizing her study materials. Ethan watched her, marveling at her poise. Despite the pressures of pairing season, she maintained control over her instincts. He envied her self-discipline. Suddenly, the station's alarms blared loudly, jolting Ethan upright. Red lights flashed and a booming voice announced, "Emergency! Breach in Sector 4. All personnel remain in designated safe zones." Ethan's heart raced. What does that mean? He asked, panicked. It means we cannot leave, Lyria replied calmly. We must stay together and secure ourselves. Follow me. They floated quickly toward the emergency protocols in zero gravity, using handholds to move efficiently. Ethan's nerves made his movements clumsy, but Lyria guided him patiently, showing him where to brace and how to operate the emergency panels. The situation was tense. A minor breach had caused the air pressure in a nearby section to drop. Sensors indicated that containment walls were unstable, and the dorm could be affected if the breach expanded. Ethan realized that their confinement during the quarantine had become dangerous. Ethan, stay close to me, Lyria instructed, her voice steady. We will work together. He nodded, feeling a mix of fear and trust. Despite his anxiety, he felt safer with her by his side. Together, they navigated the hallways, using the station's emergency overrides to seal doors and stabilize air pressure. Every movement had to be precise. One wrong step could trigger an accident. During the procedure, Ethan accidentally brushed against Lyria while floating past a panel. He immediately froze, worried that his touch might trigger her pairing instincts. You are fine, Lyria said softly, her calm voice cutting through his panic. Do not overthink. Focus on the task. Her words reassured him. He realized that her control over herself was extraordinary. Even during pairing season, even under pressure, she remained composed. Hours passed as they worked to secure the dorm and nearby corridors. The emergency lights cast sharp shadows, highlighting the determination in Lyria's eyes. Ethan admired her skill and calmness, but he also felt something more, a growing emotional connection that went beyond instinct. At one point, a small panel in the hallway malfunctioned, sparking dangerously. Ethan hesitated, unsure what to do. "Ethan," Lyria called, her voice sharp but controlled. "Use the override tool, I will guide you." He followed her instructions, his hands shaking slightly. With her guidance, the spark stopped, and the panel stabilized. Lyria's hand brushed his, briefly as she checked his grip. Ethan's heart pounded, but he kept his focus. "You did well," she said quietly. "Not because of instinct, but because you acted with awareness and courage." Ethan exhaled, relief washing over him. He realized that trust had become their greatest tool, not physical strength, not instinct, but the ability to rely on one another calmly, even under pressure. When the emergency was finally resolved, the station's systems began returning to normal. The alarms ceased and the red lights dimmed to the usual soft glow. Ethan and Lyria floated back to their dorm, exhausted but relieved. They sat together by the window, watching the stars. Ethan turned to Lyria, his voice quiet. I didn't think I could handle it. The breach, the pairing season, like everything, but you helped me stay calm. You helped me trust myself." Lyria smiled softly. "And you helped me. Even during pairing season, you did not panic. You maintained awareness and action. That is rare. You are steady, Ethan." Her words filled him with warmth. Not because of her beauty, but because of her acknowledgement of his effort, his growth, and his courage. He realized that their bond had strengthened, not just through proximity or instinct, but through shared experiences and trust. Ethan picked up the small crystal she had given him earlier. It's more than just a gift. Now, he said. It reminds me that trust matters more than anything. Even instincts, even fear. Lyria nodded. Indeed, pairing season tests many, but understanding and patience create bonds that are stronger than mere instinct. You have proven that today. For the first time, Ethan felt that the pairing season was no longer something to fear. He could respect Lyria's instincts, navigate them carefully, and still maintain control over his own emotions. They had survived the emergency, yes, but they had also survived the subtle tests of trust, patience, and understanding that pairing season imposed. The rest of the evening passed quietly. Ethan and Lyria shared a small meal and organized their study materials. They occasionally exchanged glances, small smiles, and subtle gestures of reassurance. There was no pressure, no expectation, only mutual respect and the unspoken acknowledgement of what they had endured together. As night settled over the station, Ethan lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The day had been exhausting, stressful, and at times frightening. Yet it had also been enlightening. He realized that real strength was not only in action but in calm, thoughtful responses and the ability to trust another being fully. Lyria, across the room, seemed to sense his thoughts. She gave him a faint, reassuring smile before turning back to her study. Ethan felt a quiet comfort in that gesture, a subtle affirmation of their growing connection. Outside, the stars twinkled silently, endless and vast. Inside, a human and a Varelian had faced fear, uncertainty, and instinct together. They had learned that trust, understanding, and calmness could overcome the most challenging situations, even during pairing season. Ethan knew that tomorrow would bring more subtle tests, more challenges, and more moments where instincts and emotions might collide. But he also knew that, with Lyria by his side, he could face them. Together they had discovered a bond stronger than instinct, a bond built on trust, courage, and understanding. And for the first time, Ethan did not feel trapped. The morning light filtered softly through the dorm window, casting long streaks across the room. Ethan stretched, feeling unusually calm. The quarantine and the pairing season's intensity were finally winding down. He glanced at Lyria, who was already awake, moving gracefully through the room with her usual precision. Despite the recent chaos and emotional tension, she seemed composed, her green eyes steady, her silver-violet hair catching the light. "Good morning," Ethan said softly. "Good morning, Ethan," Lyria replied, turning toward him. Her voice held a quiet warmth that made his chest tighten. "The quarantine will end soon and the station will return to normal." Ethan nodded. "Yeah, it's hard to believe how fast everything happened. It feels like months have passed, but also just a few days." Lyria studied him thoughtfully. "Time perception is often affected by stress and focus. You handled it well. Your growth during this period is remarkable." Ethan felt a small wave of pride, tempered by the memories of the past days. He thought about the breach, the zero-gravity exercises, and the moments when pairing season had made every gesture seem dangerous yet intimate. He realized he had survived, not just physically, but emotionally, learning to navigate feelings he had never experienced before. As breakfast passed quietly, they prepared for the station to lift the lockdown. Ethan noticed that the subtle tension from the pairing season had eased. Lyria's movements were still graceful, but her gestures no longer carried the same intensity of instinct. The calmness gave him a strange sense of relief. After the quarantine ended, students slowly began moving through the hallways again. Ethan and Lyria returned to their dorm to gather their belongings for normal activities. For the first time in days, they had freedom. Yet Ethan felt an unexpected hesitation. The past days had changed their relationship, and he wasn't sure what to say or do now that the forced proximity was over. Lyria noticed his hesitation. "You are thoughtful," she said quietly. "I sense a question in your mind." Ethan looked at her, unsure how to begin. I guess I'm just wondering what this all means. Pairing season is over and, well, we've spent a lot of time together. I don't want things to be awkward now." Lyria considered his words carefully. "It does not need to be awkward. The bond we formed was built on trust, understanding, and cooperation. That does not disappear because the season ends." Ethan smiled faintly. "So, you're saying we can keep what we have?" "Yes," Lyria said. "The bond is ours to define. It is stronger than instinct or circumstance. We can continue as friends, partners, or simply as companions who understand each other." Ethan's chest warmed at her words. He realized that, through the challenges, the misunderstandings, and the shared crises, they had formed something rare, a genuine connection between two very different beings. Later, they found a quiet spot by the observation window. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the station, and Ethan felt a sense of peace he hadn't known in days. Lyria sat beside him, her presence calm and reassuring. "You know," Ethan said quietly, "I didn't just learn about your species. I learned about myself, about trust, patience, and how to handle something I don't fully understand." Lyria nodded. "And I learned from you. Your care, attention, and willingness to understand my instincts. It strengthened my own control." "You are." The next day began with a soft hum through the dormitory as the station powered up its systems. Ethan yawned, stretching as he glanced at Lyria. She was already up, moving with her usual grace, preparing for the day's studies. Despite the previous day's awkwardness, Ethan felt calmer now. Their unexpected closeness had helped ease his anxiety, though the thought of pairing season still lingered in his mind. "Good morning, Ethan," Lyria said, her soft voice greeting him. "Did you sleep well?" "Better than yesterday," he admitted, sitting up. "Thanks for helping me feel comfortable." She nodded. "It is natural to adapt when forced into proximity. Comfort improves learning and cooperation." As the day progressed, the quarantine remained in effect. All exits were locked and students were confined to their rooms or designated areas. The station issued a small alert for minor maintenance work near their dorm, and Ethan and Lyria were selected to assist in a zero-gravity chamber, a required exercise for safety training. Ethan felt his stomach tighten. Zero gravity was challenging enough, but working with Lyria while she was in pairing season made him nervous. He had to be careful with every gesture, every word, every glance. When they arrived at the chamber, Lyria moved gracefully, adjusting to the floating environment without difficulty. Ethan, on the other hand, struggled to maintain balance. He bumped against a wall and let out a nervous laugh. "Careful," Lyria said, her tone calm but firm. "You must focus. Floating here is about control, not panic." "I know. I just, haven't done this much before," he admitted. She extended a hand. "Then let us work together. I will guide you." Reluctantly, Ethan reached for her hand. The touch was gentle, controlled, and non-threatening, but his heart raced. He tried to focus on the task, repairing a small panel in the chamber. Lyria guided him patiently, moving her hands over his to adjust his grip when necessary. "You are learning quickly," she said. "Humans adapt faster than I expected." "Thanks, I think," Ethan said, blushing. Every touch, every shared movement, made him acutely aware of the pairing season and the subtle instincts it could trigger. During a brief pause, Lyria floated closer. "Do not worry, Ethan. I am aware of my instincts. You need not fear them." I know. It's hard not to think about it," he admitted. Lyria's expression softened. "Then focus on the task. Focus on what is real, not instinct." Ethan nodded. Her words grounded him. He realized that despite his fear of pairing season, he trusted her. He trusted her control, her calm, and her judgment. That trust was new and surprising. He had never felt such certainty in another being before. Hours passed as they completed the maintenance work. At one point, a small tool floated toward Ethan, and Lyria reached out to grab it. Their hands brushed lightly, and Ethan flinched, almost dropping the tool. She looked at him, her green eyes curious but not judgmental. "You are tense," she said softly. "It is unnecessary. I just don't want to mess anything up," he admitted. "You will not," Lyria said, her voice gentle. "You are learning, and you are careful. That is enough." After finishing the task, they floated side by side in the chamber, catching their breath. Ethan felt a strange sense of accomplishment, not just because the maintenance was complete, but because he had worked closely with Lyria without letting fear control him. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for guiding me, for helping me stay calm." "You are welcome," Lyria replied. "It is also a lesson for me. I must control my instincts while assisting another. This strengthens trust." Ethan realized how much he had learned in just a few hours. Trust was not just about relying on someone for safety. It was about understanding, patience, and careful communication. He had never felt such a bond with another person before, and he knew it was rare, even among humans. Later, back in their dorm, Ethan and Lyria sat by the window looking at the stars. The quarantine still held, and they had no choice but to spend the rest of the day together. "You handled the chamber well," Lyria said. "You did not panic, even when I touched you to guide your hands." "I tried," Ethan said, glancing at her. "It was different, but not bad. You make it easier." Lyria's lips curved in a faint smile. "That is good. Comfort is important for all species, especially when instincts are strong. Pairing season can make Ferellians unpredictable, but you remained steady." Ethan felt a small surge of pride. Her praise meant more than he expected, not because of pairing season, not because of her beauty, but because she genuinely acknowledged his effort. As evening fell, a minor crisis occurred. A small power fluctuation caused part of their dorm. Lights to flicker and an emergency panel beeped. Ethan jumped, startled, and Lyria quickly moved to stabilize the system. "Are you all right?" she asked, her voice calm. "Yes. Thanks," Ethan said. He watched her handle the situation with precision and control, and he felt admiration growing in him. Not just admiration for her abilities, but for her character, her calm, her patience, her strength. "You did not panic," Lyria noted. "That is a positive sign. You are learning control as well." "I guess I'm learning," Ethan admitted, smiling faintly. The rest of the evening passed quietly. Ethan and Lyria shared a small meal and worked on their studies. There were moments of small physical contact, brushing hands while reaching for items, sitting close to share texts, but Lyria's guidance and Ethan's awareness kept everything controlled. By night, Ethan realized that the first test of pairing season had passed. Not because the quarantine ended, not because they had survived the chamber, but because they had begun to understand each other. Trust had formed, subtle and unspoken, bridging two very different species in a confined space. As he lay in bed, Ethan thought about the day. Lyria was more than her instincts, more than her beauty. She was intelligent, patient, and aware. He could rely on her, and maybe, just maybe, she could rely on him too. Outside, the stars continued to shine, silent witnesses to a growing connection. Inside, a human and a Varelian were learning to trust each other, step by careful step, even during the intense and unpredictable pairing season. The following morning, Ethan awoke to find Lyria already at the window, gazing out at the stars. Her silver-violet hair glimmered in the soft light, and she seemed almost serene. Ethan watched her for a moment, reminded again of how different and fascinating she was. "Morning," he said softly, trying not to startle her. She turned, her glowing green eyes meeting his. "Good morning, Ethan. Sleep well?" "Yes, better than ever," he said, smiling faintly. He pushed the covers back and sat up. "Thanks for helping me stay calm yesterday." Lyria's lips curved in a small smile. "It is my responsibility. Trust is earned, not given freely. You have done well to remain steady." Ethan's chest warmed at the praise. He had always wanted to impress others, but rarely had it mattered so much as it did now, with Lyria. Breakfast passed quietly, and the two settled into their study routines. But as the day went on, Ethan began noticing subtle changes in Lyria's behavior. She seemed more thoughtful, glancing at him more often than usual, and there were small gestures, like brushing her hand lightly against his arm when handing him a device, that made his heart beat faster. Ethan tried to ignore it, reminding himself that it was pairing season. Varelians naturally exhibited heightened emotional and physical gestures during this time, but the longer he spent with her, the harder it became to separate instinct from genuine intention. After lunch, Lyria presented him with a small object. It was a delicate crystal, glowing faintly with an inner light. Ethan froze. "What is this?" he asked, holding it carefully. "It is a Varelian gift," Lyria explained softly. "It is customary during pairing season to offer a symbol of trust and connection. I give it to you as a gesture of friendship and understanding." Ethan's face flushed. A symbol of connection? He could not tell whether this was a simple act of trust or the start of a more serious pairing gesture. "Oh, thank you," he said awkwardly, holding it as if it might burn him. I appreciate it." Lyria tilted her head slightly. "Do not worry. I do not expect anything in return. It is merely a gesture of acknowledgement." Despite her calm words, Ethan could not stop his mind from racing. The crystal felt heavy in his hand, not physically, but emotionally. Pairing season or not, this was a serious gesture for a Varelian, and he worried he might have misinterpreted everything she had done so far. I hope I am not misreading things," he said quietly. "I don't want to make you uncomfortable." "You are not making me uncomfortable," Lyria replied, her voice gentle. "Humans are often unsure of our customs. That is understandable. We must communicate clearly to avoid misunderstanding." Ethan nodded slowly, grateful for her patience. But even as he tried to calm himself, a small worry lingered. Had he already misstepped without realizing it? Later, they were tasked with rearranging some storage in the dorm. As they worked side by side, their hands brushed lightly several times. Each contact sent a jolt through Ethan, and he caught himself staring at her more than he intended. "Ethan," Lyria said softly, noticing his distraction, "you are focusing on me, not the task." He looked away, embarrassed. I'm trying. It's hard. It is natural to feel tension during pairing season, she said. But you must focus on action, not fear. Her words struck him. She understood, and yet she remained composed, guiding him without judgment. Ethan realized that she was not simply beautiful or intimidating. She